You are listening to A Path to a New You, a podcast about mental health as well as veterans issues. Today's topic, today's episode, I want to talk about normalizing mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, including me, and we just want to learn from them. So, in today's episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about it, and this also includes failures. Failures and mistakes are kind of the same thing. All of us have made mistakes in our life, in our past. Mistakes can be anything from wrong answers on a test or wrong decision, whether it's at work or actually in life. Mistakes are an important part of our lives, not only for us humans, but also other animals and insects learn from their mistakes. So it's not just us, it's everybody else out there, including like insects, birds, mammals, anybody like that. They all learn from their mistakes. Everyone, like I said, everyone makes mistakes. So, what exactly is a definition of a mistake? A mistake is a situation in which you take an inappropriate decision or make an inappropriate action that leads to regrets. Mistakes can cause a level pain, loss, or even struggle. So it's a situation in which you take an inappropriate decision or make an inappropriate action that leads to regret in the future is what it's a mistake. So mistake. We all try to avoid making mistakes and we all want to be perfect. You know what they say, practice makes perfect? Well, in this case, it usually doesn't. So when we try to be perfect, we happen to make even more mistakes. So yeah, practice does not make perfect. They say that in sports, when you're shooting free throws and such, you're going to keep shooting and practicing, and eventually you will be, they say you're going to be perfect, or in other situations too. However, that's not the case. I mean, you might, while shooting free throws in a basketball game, be more, you might make more instead of like a 70% free throw shooter. You might end up being like an 80% free throw shooter, but being perfect, like, you don't see that in college basketball or even pro sports where they're not 100%. I think the highest I've seen in switching like that would be like a 92% free throw shooter. So yeah, not everybody's perfect. Mistakes benefit learning by gaining negative knowledge and enhancing the learning process. The strategies for learning for mistakes include accepting it, mindfulness, and self compassion. Mindfulness, and I've talked about mindfulness in the past. I've actually have an episode about mindfulness. So if you haven't listened to that episode, it should be in the on there somewhere. Might be a few weeks ago, but look, I think the name of it is mindfulness. What is it, or something like that. So if you don't know what mindfulness is, you can always go listen to my episode where I talk about mindfulness. So how does mindfulness help with mistakes? Mindfulness helps out since you're in the moment and you focus on the thoughts and feelings, while self compassion helps their lives and accept themselves. So, self compassion, you accept it, you accept what's going on, and you're just being compassion to yourself, self compassion. I've learned a lot about that kind of stuff while working and in life too. Like, you gotta know you're not you're. your self compassion. You just I don't know. It's hard to explain, but being compassionate toward yourself. So you know what? Don't be too hard on yourself. Mistakes do happen. Learn from them. So at work, I can give some examples at work. Well, while I was working on my licensure, we have supervision. So I went to schooling for my master's, and then after my master's, I got a licensure. It's called a training license, the LPC training license. And um, so when you work, you're working on it's like 3,000 hours of training. And throughout the training, you will see, you'll be a, you'll have a supervisor at work who's qualified to be your supervisor. In certain situations, someone with, like, for example, an LPC would have to be fully licensed for 5 years in order to supervise someone with an LPC training license, like myself. So we would see clients. I would see clients, counseling, and once a week I would see my supervisor, and we talk about our clients. Of course, everything's confidential during that time, and we talk about, like, mistakes. What happened. Like, we went over everything during that week. There's two clients I need to talk about. If there's something that maybe I should have done instead of something that could have been done differently, and we learn from the mistake, and we talk about it. So there are a few things that can definitely help with making mistakes. We can encourage making mistakes. Most employers, they can encourage it, like, say, you got to make mistakes. Mistakes do happen. And there are some employers where I worked at where, you're a mistake, you are in trouble, you get written up. And that's tough because then you're tough on yourself, then you have to be perfect. You have to tell yourself, I can't make a mistake. I need to be perfect because I cannot get written up. There are employers out there like that. Those employers who have that, then that doesn't work. They have a turnover, like a large turnover, which means, they have people quitting after a couple of years and such. I mean, there's very few out there, but there are some out there. And just the environment there is just not safe. It's toxic. And people tend to leave because, you know what? It's toxic. It's not a place for them. So, here are some things you can talk about on how to encourage mistakes. Normalize the mistakes. Remind ourselves that mistakes are a normal part of learning and talk about it. Like I mentioned earlier with my supervisor, I talk about it. We uh we would discuss and talk about it and learn from it. One of the things you can do when you make a mistake, just stay calm. A lot of us, including myself, when I make a mistake, all of a sudden our anxiety goes up. Our reaction, anxiety, frustration. You're like, man, I should not have made that mistake. What am I doing? Then you put yourself down and just know to stay calm. You know what? It's a mistake. Talk about it, analyze it through yourself. Be like, you know what? This is a mistake. What could I have done differently? Just stay calm. I know my anxiety goes through the roof if I make a mistake, especially if I'm at work. But I know afterwards, like, I can talk about it to my supervisor or to a coworker or a supervisor and just talk about it. Also, reflecting on the mistake. Ask yourself what happened or talk to someone about it. Like I mentioned, you talk about it once a week. You don't have to wait till supervision or once a week either. You can actually, most supervisors, including the ones I've had, they have an open door policy, which means you can go in, like knock on the door or something, and say, hey, you know what? I need to talk to you about something. And so most of the time, if they're not busy, they'll they'll let you come in and sit down, and and they talk about it. And then you can reflect on, you know what, this situation happened. It's a mistake, and both of you can reflect on it. Strategize. Encourage yourself to come up with new ways to solve the problem or fix the mistake. What can I do differently next time if something like this comes up? Again, I talked about my supervision for my licensure. When I was through the 3,000 hours, I would strategize with my supervisor. You know what? This thing might happen again. It's a good chance it could happen again. What can I do to solve the problem in the future when it happens again? Again, I was seeing a supervisor at least once a week, and it's required with your training license. Even when you're fully supervised, there's times where you can talk to someone about a situation. Now, again, for confidentiality reasons, we don't say the person's name. We usually, like someone, I'll usually say, you know what, I had a situation like this happen. What can I do to improve it? And usually the other person you're talking to might have a different idea, like a different idea is like, you know what, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? Next time, do this. Now, again, practice does not make perfect in this situation. Practice means progress. Learn from the mistake. Just learn from it. Practice does not make perfect, especially in this situation, in my type of work, or even maybe in your type of work. It does not, practice does not make perfect. No one's always perfect. Perfection, just the anxiety goes to the roof. If you're trying to be perfect all the time, you make a ton of mistakes, and then your anxiety goes through the roof. So, again, practice does not make perfect. Practice means progress. Always say that to yourself if you make a mistake. Don't say, don't be perfect. Practice means progress. Learn from your mistakes. Even you have to write it down. Write it down. Just saying, you know what? This is what happened. This is what I'm going to do next time. Always talk to someone else too. Always talk to like a coworker or supervisor. Talking about it definitely helps. This also can be used for failures. You know what? Feel like a failure, you fail at something like a test or anything, you get more depressed, you get down on yourself, and just your mental health just goes, your mental health, your depression, anxiety, frustration goes through the roof, which means your mental health is not at where it's supposed to be. Just use the same thing that I'm talking about with your failures. You know what? You failed, get up, and try again. What was it? Aaliyah, the artist? If you don't succeed, get up and try again. And it's going to take practice. And it's going to take, like I said, practice makes progress. Practice means progress. Keep saying that to yourself. You know what? And eventually you're like, you know what? It's okay. I made a mistake. It's no big deal. Stay calm. Talk to your supervisor. Talk to someone at work about it, and everything will be okay. Normalize your mistakes. Normalize, normalize your failures. Everything will be okay. I hope you learned something from this episode. Again, If you have questions, please reach out. I do have a Facebook page for this podcast called The Path to New You on Facebook. I will post a link to my Facebook page on the comments of where I talk about what this episode's about. I'll post a link there. Please like it and follow. I do post stuff on self care, mental health related stuff too. I also post the link to my podcast. Again, um, if you're not following my podcast, please follow. Please press that notification button at the very top. So when you click on it, you'll know when I have a new episode out. I know it's been a couple of weeks since I had one. I think the last one was April 16th, almost a month ago. I understand. I try to do one at least once a week. I try to do an episode one a week. Sometimes I get busy and things happen. If you have a topic that you want me to discuss, you can also message me on my Facebook page, Path to New You, and I'll talk about it. If you know someone who'd be a guest, could be a great guest on my show, please let me know. I have them reach out. If you would like to be a guest on my show, please reach out. You can message me, post a comment, and I'd love for you to be a guest on my show. I'm trying to find more guests. I've had a couple in the last few months, but again, it's just me talking. Sometimes that can get boring. So please reach out if you would like to be a guest or know someone who'd like to be a guest who specializes in a certain topic, whether it be a mental health related topic or a veteran related topic. So, again, this podcast is about mental health issues and veterans issues. So, they kind of correlate and sometimes they don't. I'm looking for more topics. This podcast is available on most platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Amazon Music, Audible, and it's a free to listen to as well. And it's free to just subscribe as well too, I believe. And it's free to listen to. And my episodes sometimes aren't that long, depending on if I have a client anywhere. It could be a little bit longer, so it's anywhere from like 10 to 30 minutes. I try not to bore you with all my talking. So again, you were listening to A Path to New You. And oh, by the way, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So my next episode, I'll be talking a little bit about that. And hopefully that'll be next week. Sometime next week, I'm hoping. Anyway, you were listening to A Path to New You. And until next time, please be well. Take care of yourself. And always remember, practice means progress. Practice means progress. Practice does not mean perfection. Practice means progress. Until next time, be well.